Estimates, supplementary estimates 2017-18. Mr Carmody, Senator Xenophon will proceed with a line of questioning about process. The relevant email, Senator Xenophon has very kindly agreed that he will retender a redacted version. At that point, you'll have the benefit, and we'll give you a couple of minutes to read it and understand it, and with your staff, and then Senator Xenophon will finish his line of questioning. Senator Xenophon.
Okay, I'll put these in general terms. It's an initial process that I'm concerned about. The names of the individuals aren't so key to this. It's who was authorised to see the draft report as to the processes involved for that. Can you take that on notice?
Certainly, Senator.
Okay. And could it be that it seems that some people have... were there any individuals that weren't authorised to see the report that did see the report?
Senator, I'll take both of those on notice. You would expect, Senator, if I may, though, that the draft interested parties report is provided to us to provide comment on, and you would expect my inspectorate, those who are involved in the matter, to be reviewing that report and providing comment.
I understand that, but there's a separate issue, is there not, as to whether that draft report is used for a decision-making basis that could impact on Mr James directly. There's a separate issue there.
It's a separate issue?
It's a separate issue, and it relates to issues under the Transport Safety Investigation Act.
Yeah, I understand that. Senator, if I may add just while we're talking, that the condition was put on Mr James's licence a number of years ago, a condition which he accepted at the time. He accepted the condition on his ATPL at the time, and he's only just recently, nearly 5 years later, come to us and asked for it to be removed. And as I said, some 3 weeks before the final report is due to be handed down.
Right, but there's an issue that there's a CASA disclosure log on the web, isn't there, of documents?
Yes, there is.
And that relates to documents such as standard form recommendations or not?
I think under the FOI legislation there are some limitations about what goes on there, but anything that we're required to post publicly will be on there.
Okay, so there's no question that these documents that weren't posted publicly should have been posted publicly?
If they were within the category of documents that ought to have been identified, then I'm...
If you could take that on notice.
I will,
okay,
yes.
I'm nearly done, and I think you will get a redacted version of the document to assist you to take questions on notice. My understanding is that there was an agreement in place for a CASA flight operations inspector to conduct an ATPL command check that would involve a diversion task, and where Mr James would show his process and provide an answer for this task, but not actually undertake the diversion. Is that your understanding?
I might pass to one of my colleagues for the technical detail. I think that's Mr James's understanding. I'm not actually sure that is the correct understanding.
Or is that CASA's understanding?
Hi, this is Graham Crawford, Group Manager, Aviation at CASA. There was an agreement for him to undertake some review of his capability under certain conditions, and that was accepted by him a number of years ago.
Right, so that's your understanding. And I'm advised that CASA are seeking to broaden the scope of this ATPL command check. Is that your understanding?
I don't believe we broadened the check. I think we believe that what we've proposed is well within what we originally agreed a number of years ago.
And is CASA aware of all the tests that Mr James has successfully undergone since the Pell accident, the IFR theory exam, the multi-engine CPL flight test, and a whole range?
Senator, yes, we are.
We are aware of all of those.
There's about 20 or so factors in relation to that, including detailed Falcon Air induction ground training. So you're aware of that?
We are aware of that,
Absolutely.
Senator.
So that would, because of all those things that have occurred in the last few years, isn't that a factor that you take into account?
Senator, as I indicated, the gentleman has approached us and asked us to reconsider, and we are looking at the matter. But I can take those matters into consideration, but I would also want to take into consideration the ATSB report when it is handed down in 2 to 3 weeks. I could not.
Okay, Mr Carmody, I'm nearly done. My understanding is that there's a requirement in terms of flight checks that would involve Mr James having to pay at his expense to have CASA officers to go to a flight simulator somewhere in the United States. Is that the case?
But that's not the case, Senator.
It's not the case now?
So it was not the case. There was a proposal for him to be assessed and a Falcon 20 flight simulator. There, to my understanding, there are only 2 in the world, one in Houston in Texas and one near Paris. We would need to have an FOI present to oversee that, and that was going to be at CASA's cost.
Not at his cost.
The FOI.
Not, the FOI would not be at his cost. So we would have sent somebody there to assess him, not at his cost.
So he's put forward a proposal to be assessed in a Falcon 20, and there are only 2 simulators in the world. So he's come forward with that proposal for him to be assessed to remove the restriction on his licence. We've undertaken that we would fund the FOI to attend that simulator, to conduct that test, to remove the condition that was placed on his licence that he agreed to have placed on his licence. So
Okay. So I just wanted to clarify that. My understanding is that there would have been a further cost for him in relation to that.
He would have to pay his own costs to go there and use the simulator, I assume, Senator. We would only
Yeah,
pay.
that's
only
correct.
pay the cost of our inspector to be conducting the check.
So essentially, we would fund the inspector to go and conduct a flight review.
It's good to clarify that. I'm almost finished. The Senate inquiry some time ago found that there were a number of points of fault in the Pale Air incident. It's clear there are a number of impositions of Mr James. Can CASA advise what other officials or what other entities by title, not named, that have had a remedial action placed on them? Because in terms of, whether there were multiple points of fault leading to this incident.
Sorry, Senator, can I just clarify that? You're talking
We're talking
specifically about the Pell Air incident?
Yes, I am.
And whether we have placed any restrictions on anyone else?
Yes.
So I can take it on notice, but I understand that the only restriction that was placed would be a restriction placed on the pilot in command. At this stage, I don't believe any other restrictions have been placed on the first officer, but I can check.
Management issue, not on management issues with Pell Air and their systems.
But I don't know whether that really leads to any restrictions, but I'll take that on notice. Senator.
All right. So, and on notice, after the release of the ATSB report, there is issues of air traffic control and weather forecasting. So whether there were, if not restrictions, whether there were recommendations made in relation to improvements of that.
Certainly, I'm aware that a number of changes were made post that accident, or a number of improvements were made.
Right.
But I can provide those responses on notice. I think they've been provided before, Senator, but quite happy to provide them.
So on notice, after the release of the report, can you advise the committee of every person who was identified as contributing to the accident directly or indirectly, and any action that CASA has taken in respect to those persons? And that's something that can be done after the ATSB report.
We have to wait for the ATSB report, but certainly.
Thank you, Chair.